Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Crystal, I've got a crazy idea.
Okay, I'm here for it. That's what I'm here for.
Why don't we take a wild ride back to Rome? I know we've been to Italy already, but what do you say we go back to Rome?
Well, yeah, I've not been to Rome. Rome is on my list, my to-do list.
What's that song by the B-52s? Rome If You Want To?
Oh, yeah.
Rome If You Want To.
I don't think they're talking about that.
Oh.
But I do. I want to Rome.
Let's do it.
I'm going to use that. Rome If You Want To.
On today's show, the best fiction holds a lot of truth, and that truth demands research. And when we talk about research, that means it also demands travel. On today's show, we chat with an award-winning mystery author who uses Rome and the Vatican and Portland, Oregon and Florence and Capri and Naples as his backdrop. How did he plan? Where should you go? And of course, bring that beach read, his book, along. Let's talk high adventure at the Vatican on today's show.
And at the end of this episode and every episode, you'll hear our Gear of the Day pick. So if you're looking for best-in-class gear that's worth the price, head to our Amazon page at stackingadventures.com/gear of the day or GOTD. You'll help the show and you'll help yourself adventure better and for less money because we're cheapskates. I know I am. I'm a giant cheapskate. And I am a giant because I'm tall.
Ready for adventure? From vacation to staycation, and from the mountains to the beach. This is the Stacking Adventures podcast.
Welcome back to the Stacking Adventures podcast. Every adventure has a story, and today we're going to hear, well, about an adventure with the story, Crystal, but he also is a gentleman who creates adventures.
Yes, and we're ready to hear from him. And first of all, I want to go on this adventure. As I was reading, I was thinking, okay, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? I'm glad I'm going to ask a lot of questions.
Wait a minute. You want to be chased by the mafia?
Yes. I want to feel like I'm in a movie as I'm there. And then I want to meet 07. I want to meet James Bond.
Let's meet the man of the hour. He's the guy who is behind the hit new book, The Vatican Deal. Michael Balter joins us. How are you, man?
Hi, Joe. Hi, Chris. I am not James Bond. I have to be a heck of a lot better looking to be James Bond, trust me.
But you are Marty in your book.
Marty is based a little bit off of my character, yes.
I love it.
So tell us, let's start off with where this idea came from, Michael, because a lot of the stuff that happens in the Vatican Deal, we were talking backstage before we recorded, a lot of this is truthful stuff. You and a friend were trying to buy a foundry?
Yes. So I've been very fortunate, and I had for lack of a better term, I had a very kind of varied career. And I spent the first 20 years of my life as a technologist, and then I spent another 20 years being an entrepreneur. And during my entrepreneurial years, I actually ended up taking a large position, or actually ending up owning an art company. And it wasn't a standard art company. It was a company that delivered art to charity fundraising events. And when you go to the kind of your standard school auction or whatever, you get to bid on art and cruises and things like that. So we supplied them. And the company grew so fast that we ran out of art. And my business partner and I scratched our head and said,
a lot of this is rooted in stuff that you really did. You were truly trying to buy a foundry, and the Vatican was involved.
Yes. So I had a kind of varied career in that I spent a lot of my time in technology, and then I spent a lot of my time in entrepreneuring or entrepreneurship. And one of the things that I did while I was an entrepreneur is I ended up owning an art company. And the art company provided art to charities all around the country, all around the world, actually. And it grew so quickly that we ran out of art, and which is difficult when you have an art company. And so art isn't a commodity. We didn't quite know what to do because we'd hired all these artists and they just couldn't keep up with the demand. And so we decided to go to Europe, and we would talk to the museums. And we went to the Louvre, we went to the Uffizi in Florence, we went to the Vatican Museum, and we asked them if they would let us, for a small royalty, replicate the art in their, especially three-dimensional art. And surprise, surprise, they said yes. And we decided to go first with the Vatican because the Vatican Museum also had another program, which was a licensing program. And I and my company bought the Vatican seal. We bought the Vatican license to replicate all the art in the Vatican archives.
Whoa.
Which is really, there's a lot of stuff in the Vatican archives. They've written books about this, and we had access to it. And for about 2 years, I actually had the rights, the global rights to the Vatican seal. I could replicate the Vatican seal.
But I didn't get how important this was until you mentioned it as an aside in the book, that art collectors, if they own an expensive piece of art, they'd like a replica they can show all their friends so they can keep the original in a safe spot. And people that are not wealthy to have just paintings that everybody's seen on their wall. Like makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So very wealthy art collectors, they want to keep their art in a vault somewhere because God forbid something happens to their Van Gogh. Right. But they want the exact same painting. So it's a good forgery. They'll hang that. And people who aren't incredibly wealthy want to pretend that they're wealthy and show their peers, look, this is my Van Gogh. And it's really not. But yes, it's, one of the points of the book is that forgery is very desirable.
Yeah. A line, I think, and I'm not going to say it, but a line that made me laugh in your book, Michael, was you're like, if we create the art and we tell you it's a forgery, that's fine. What the collector decides to tell their friends is something totally different.
Right. The line is where the salesperson says, I can't lie about the provenance of a painting. But you, the buyer, you can lie about it all you want.
Do whatever you want. Yeah, unless they bring an appraiser over to your house to see. All right, you begin the book with one character saying he can get a Cessna citation for $20 million. That'll wake anybody up. Crystal could do that too. She just chooses not to. Right. But they're sitting in this spot where I've been in Rome called Plaza Navona, this beautiful plaza. Can you describe this part of Rome for people that haven't been there?
Yes, it's a beautiful plaza. It's in a kind of an elliptical plaza. There are 3 major fountains there. Of course, you're going to ask me what they are, and I don't remember them, except for the one that we sat at. There was a restaurant. Oh, you're going to ask me, and it's in the book, and I didn't write it down. Forgive me.
No, you did. That's okay. We don't need the name of the restaurant because I'll tell you, having been there, almost every restaurant in that plaza looks like a place you want to sit, Michael.
Yes, that's very true. And we were sitting right in front of the fountains, Bernini's Fountain of the Four Rivers. Yes. And we were sitting in front of the God of the Danube. Yes.
And it is just gorgeous. And at night, were you there during the day or were you there in the evening?
I was there primarily during the day. I wasn't there in the evening, but I have heard it's absolutely beautiful. The thing that's really nice about it is we were there during the winter months, and it was really nice because you don't get the crowd quite as it's not as packed. There were vendors that did the roasting of walnuts and things. It was just, it was really lovely. And the crowd was very sparse. And so we had a chance to really see everything. So
they're drinking something, or you say they're spooning something called affogatos. I've never had an affogato. What's an affogato?
I didn't either until what happened was I wanted coffee. So here's the story. I wanted coffee, trying to get decaf coffee. And back then I had an issue that I needed to stop drinking as much coffee as I was drinking because my heart was palpitating too often. And so my doctor said, stop with the caffeine already. And so I said, okay. And I said to the Cameriere, I said, decaf. And he'd look at me and he'd go, Sanka. And I said, no. Sanka was like this little packet. And it was, and it's gross. Okay.
It is so gross.
Gross coffee. Okay. And I said, no, not Sanka, decaf. Sanka. No. So we finally settled on affogatos, which is a vanilla ice cream, and they pour espresso over it.
Yum.
Wow.
Blast of caffeine.
Oh yeah, there's a place
It's
here
really
in
good. It's
Georgetown.
really
They
good.
have a
Caffeine, sugar, and calories all in one drink.
yeah. There's a
I
place here
spent the
they
rest of the
make
day
their.
wondering if I was going to have a heart attack.
There's a place here that makes their espresso martinis affogato style. Those are amazing.
Oh, do they?
Yes. In Georgetown.
So you have, wait a minute, so you have ice cream in your martini? Is that what that means?
In your espresso martini, yes. They use gelato. It's so good. Yum. Back to Rome.
The characters at this point, Michael, by the way, let's talk about the book for just a second. The characters, though, why do they want a Cessna?
No, that's just a line in the book. The basic premise of the book, let me explain the basic premise of the book, is that I used my own experience, which is that we had gone to Italy. We were looking to replicate this art from all these different museums. So the problem, and I'll just tell you this real quick story. So we negotiated for about 6 months. I spent a lot of time in Rome. I went back and forth in about at least 5 or 6 trips in 1 year alone. We ended up getting the licensing deal done with the Vatican. And so now I had this contract that said that I had the licensing rights to replicate art in the Vatican Museum, which I then took over to the Vatican Museum, which is about 4 steps away from the library. And I said, "Hi, look at me. I've got this contract that says I can replicate Michelangelo's Pietà, for example, in Peter's Square, in the Peter's Basilica." And of course, after the laughter died, after they stopped laughing hysterically,
sure you can.
Yeah, I said, "What's the problem?" They said, "I don't care what kind of a contract you have. If you think we're going to let you like pour a mold over the Michelangelo's Pietà, you've got another thing coming." So my partner and I went, "Oh crap, we just negotiated this thing and we didn't do enough due diligence because we just found out that it's very difficult to make this happen." So we were very frustrated. And again, I'll try to make this very short. When we were frustrated, we went to Florence because we were negotiating at the same time. And while we walked down the river, that's right, the river is the Aurora, is it the Oro River? And and so we were walking along the street there and there was a gallery. An art gallery. We went into the art gallery and we saw the exact sculptures that we wanted right out of the museum. And we said, "Whoa, wait a minute. Where'd you get this?" Owner of the gallery said, "It's a Curazzi." And we said, "It's a what?" And they said, "It's a Curazzi, which is Naples foundry. It's the second oldest foundry in Italy." And what had happened was that very quickly is that around the turn of the century, all the museums in Europe were quite nervous that they were going to have their great art, their priceless art, potentially damaged through war or through natural disaster or fire or what have you. And so what they did is they had contracted with the Curazzi foundry, this very famous foundry, to make duplicates of their really precious stuff. And that way they'd always have a copy in their basement. But what they didn't do, because they were museums, they weren't foundries, they didn't do anything with the mold. So the Curazzi kept the mold. So the Curazzi foundry ended up with about 1,650 molds of the greatest Renaissance art in human history.
Wow.
And we said, "Whoa, wait a minute. And so my partner went down to Naples and talked to the guy, and he was a very old man. His great-grandfather started the foundry, and it was, believe it or not, it was for sale."
Huh.
What? How could this be? So we immediately then went into negotiations to buy the foundry because we suddenly would get our hands on 1,650 molds of the most incredible art, which we could then replicate and then supply that to our customers.
Because of the one time in history.
That whole Italian story.
Yeah.
Because it's the one time in history that they were going to let somebody go near Michelangelo's. Go, okay, yes.
Right.
You got us.
We want to take David and we want to pour an entire mold over him. And and the guy who was in charge of David is sitting there going, "Over my dead body."
Oh my God.
This Plaza Navona we were talking about is not far from the Vatican. It's an easy walk from there over to the Vatican.
Yeah.
Your characters, Martin and Bo, they stay at this hotel called the Michelangelo Hotel. Is this hotel made up or is this a real place?
No, it's a star hotel. It's Michelangelo. It's right on. It's I think if I remember correctly, it was on.
You say?
Yeah, it's Via della Stazione, I believe is the name of the street, and it's about I don't know maybe 2 blocks from the wall that encases the Vatican City, and it's about a 5-minute walk from there to St. Peter's Square.
What would you tell people to see at the Vatican?
Everything. I think one of the things, and I put this in the book, one of the things that's interesting, or at least was interesting to me about the Vatican, is that so the Vatican is this. The Vatican City is a country unto itself, and you could fit the entire city about 6 or 7 times into Central Park in New York. Okay, that's how small it is, right? And but everything in it is huge. St. Peter's Square, for example, is 6 or 7 football fields, all right? And the Basilica is the single largest church in the world. And all of the buildings around it, they're all attached. You can move around the Vatican really on a rainy day without ever getting wet if you wanted to. But it's all packed together. And then when you consider all of the history that's in there, it's really, like I said, it's once in a lifetime kind of an experience. Because we had this agreement with the Vatican, we never managed to get the art. We got the art in another way, but what we did get was some great tours. Oh my goodness. We got the best. Normally when you go and visit the Vatican, you line up at the beginning of the day, 6 o'clock in the morning, and the line starts to form and it's like a mile long. And then you have to work your way through, and then they'll take you through all of the different corridors and they'll show you all of the art. And it's absolutely amazing. It's an amazing museum. But if you know someone, or if you have connections, if that's the right term, they will take you ahead of everybody so that you get to see it in private. And the way they do that is that you just show up at 8 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock, because they open the museum at 9 o'clock and they'll take the special guests at 8 o'clock. And then with a special VIP guide, and then we get to walk through all of the different parts of the Vatican by ourselves. And we get to go in, for example, we got to go through the Sistine Chapel without anyone else there.
Yeah.
I went about 2 or 3 years later, and I went in and there were like 4,000 people. And I was look up. And I said, this is not what it was like a couple of years ago when I was there by myself with my business partner. And we'd go up to the walls and it was amazing. Yeah.
There are some, Michael, there's some ways people spend money on travel that I think are ridiculous. And there's other ones that I think are well worth it. And if you're into art and you're into the history of the Catholic Church, paying for one of those VIP tours, to your point, I think is so worth the money. Crystal and our Adventures by Disney trip to Italy, Michael, I had a similar experience. We got to go after hours to the Vatican Museum. We had a guard in front of us and a guard behind us, and the guard would unlock the next section. Yep. And then we would walk into the next section, and then the guard behind us would lock the door from the section we were in. Yep. And then we got to linger and do whatever. When we were done, they would just lock the next one and unlock it. It was 40 of us.
Yeah.
And so when we made it to the Sistine Chapel, just like you, Michael, I laid on the floor. I was laying on the floor of the Sistine Chapel with a headset and somebody who is an expert in the ceiling was explaining the whole process Michelangelo went through to do the ceiling, and went home and we were talking to Cheryl's uncle who's traveled a lot. And he said the other story you talked about, Michael, which was he was herded like cats. He's, oh, you're going to hate it. We're like, no, we loved it. No, it was fantastic.
I don't know if you noticed it, and maybe you didn't have the same feelings that I did. The thing that was interesting for me is that everything, even though it's compact into a very small space, it's all overwhelmingly large, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything. The Sistine Chapel itself, it's actually a small chapel, but because of the painting and because of its history and all that, it just felt like it's huge. Just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There was more of a kind of an intangible something there that just made everything feel a little bit more immense. And
presence.
so that's one of the things that I noticed about the Vatican.
I think it's partly for me was because every space mattered.
Yeah.
And the enormity of, I'm in the freaking Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
that also
sink
weighs
in.
on you. But then as our guide is just going on and on about this thing matter, what the significance is of this, significance of this, significance of this. There were people Michelangelo hated, so he painted them as demons in the picture. There's like this historical significance that was amazing. I saw in your pictures, I showed them earlier for people hanging out with us live on YouTube. You also went other places in Rome. You were there. I had a picture of you at the Coliseum. How did you like the Coliseum?
Yeah. When we were there, like I said, we went quite often. In fact, at one point, we actually did something for the Vatican embassy. So I was negotiating to get this licensing. And one day I'm sitting in Portland and I get a phone call and the person on the other end says, "Is this Michael Balter?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And she said, "Please hold for the ambassador." So I'm thinking, okay.
Oh.
It's some clown. So I'm like, sure. So I wait. And about 15 seconds later, somebody gets on the phone and says, "Hi, is this Michael?" And I said, "Yes, this is this is Jack Nicholson, or not Jack. This is Nicholson was his name. His first name was Ambassador Nicholson." And I said, "Yeah, sure it is." And so we went on for about another minute or so, and it went, "Oh my God, it's the ambassador." And I said, "Sir, what can I do for you?" And he said, "I understand you're negotiating. You're an art company, et cetera. And we have the 20th anniversary of the embassy being opened at the Vatican. It opened under Reagan in 1984, and this is 2004, and it's a 20-year anniversary. And I'm looking to have these medallions minted for VIP folks as a gift to come. And I'd like you to mint them for me because you're an art company."
Whoa.
And so I ended up doing that. And so he wanted exactly 100. There was going to be one to the Pope and President Bush at the time, et cetera. And so anyways, but the reason I tell that story is because we had many reasons to go to Rome. And of course, the one time we went to the Coliseum, and also very interesting, on that day, pure coincidence, we're standing in line and we're waiting because we didn't have the clout at the Coliseum like we did at the Vatican. And so we're in line, and there's this group, this small cadre of folks, and they are pushing past us and they're just going. And what we did when we went to the Vatican. And I said, "Wow, what's going on there?" And must be a VIP. And yeah, it was Kevin Costner.
Wow.
So we got to see him. So here we are in the Coliseum. This shows you how Americans are really dumb sometimes. They're so starstruck. So here we are, and we're in the Coliseum, which is older than dirt. And all we're doing is taking pictures of Kevin Costner.
Oh my God, that's funny.
He was really big at the. Oh my God!
Oh.
So yeah, I showed to my friends and say, "So wait a minute, you got all these pictures of Kevin Costner. You're not next to him." No, I couldn't go near him. But can I? How was the Coliseum? Oh, I don't remember that much about the Coliseum. But I can tell you what he wore. I can tell you what Kevin wore. So,
that's funny.
You mentioned there's a character named Leo in the book, and he says your character asks him if he lives in Rome, and he says, "No, I don't live in Rome. I live just over an hour away in a town called Orvieto." It's funny that you mentioned Michael Orvieto because I went to Orvieto when I was there. Did you go to Orvieto?
I did not. I knew somebody who actually did live there, and that's why I used that town. But I myself never got a chance to go there.
If you want to get away from some of the crowds, there's still going to be some tours there, but it is a quaint little town. It was a place where there was a miracle. So, of course, it's a little tiny town with the biggest freaking church, just a huge church because there was a miracle. And it has the stripes like a lot of the Italian churches has. So it looks like a zebra. And it's up on a cliff. So you park below and you get on a funicular, and then it's a walking town. And we got the most beautiful Italian homemade serving bowls for our spaghetti, and we got a pizza cutter and just this beautiful stuff. So I think about Orvieto all the time. And by the way, there's a winery. There's wines from Orvieto that are great. If you ever go into a wine shop and you're not sure what to order, the wines, if you ask about wines from Orvieto, there generally will be
I will
really
do
good.
that. I love wine, and Italian wines are my favorites. And so I drink Barolos and Rosos. And
Oh, Barolo.
oh my God, they're just amazing. And yeah,
I know a guy who's a wine shop owner, and he said the biggest problem, people are like, give me good Italian wine. He gives them a Barolo. He tells them to open it and then let it sit out for 45 minutes to an hour, which is what you've got to do. And he said, and every time these new wine drinkers bring it back, they're like, that wine sucked. And he goes, did you leave it open for an hour before you served it? And they go, oh, no, we forgot to do that. Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
I want to ask about Naples, because I know you didn't spend a lot of time in Naples, but your partner did. And the reviews that I've heard, I don't know about you, Crystal, but the reviews I've heard of Naples have always been really mixed. I don't know if you need to go to Naples. Do you remember what your partner said about Naples, or your thoughts about Naples?
So my knowledge of Naples is also somewhat mixed. What I heard was that it's a very old city. Obviously, it's actually older than Rome, but it's a little seedier. And also it's a little bit more dangerous in terms of you just have to be a little bit more careful. Also, Naples is, for the most part, pretty imbued with the Gomorrah. And the Gomorrah is the Italian version, or not the Italian version. It is the Italian mafia that exists in Capri, which is the province in which Naples exists. And they have, and it's pretty well everywhere. Most of the shops, et cetera, they pay something called piso, which is their payment that they make to the local guy, the gang guy, or gang or what have you. And it's pretty prevalent within Naples. Now, again, I didn't spend a lot of time in Naples. As I said, I spent it at the ferry area, but I'd been told that you just have to be a little bit more careful when you're in Naples.
Yeah, wow. Crystal, have you heard that about Naples as well?
No, I hadn't. Did you have, going back to Rome quickly, since you were there so much, did you have a place that you had to go to every time you were there, or something you saw every time, or any kind of routine thing where, all right, I'm back, I gotta visit this place?
Yeah, actually, it was the Michelangelo Hotel. First of all, I love the Michelangelo. It's really a great hotel. And because when we went to Rome, we always went to the Vatican. That was the reason for us to go. So that was always the place where we would center around. And yeah, so that was to answer that question. Yeah.
And let's end the first half of this discussion, Michael, with the opposite of that. Anything our adventurers should avoid when they go to Rome. Like, it gets a lot of great love by people, but it wasn't so much for you.
Okay, I didn't quite understand that. I love Rome. It was Naples that I wasn't all that familiar with. But I'm
just saying, in Rome, is there something that's you don't really need to see that? Because I love Rome, but as an example, like, I was a runner, so I ran down the Tiber River every morning, but it's not that pretty. It was fine. But
I'd stayed out of the kind of suburbs. If my entire time in Rome, and as I said, I went quite often, but it was almost always within it was in the Vatican and about the half a mile that surrounded the Vatican. So I was right in the middle, and I didn't really get to go to the outskirts. Didn't have to, didn't need to. And also it was just very beautiful in most of the places that I went. All the great restaurants. You've got the Spanish Steps, for example. You've got which is the main shopping street. I don't know if you remember. Did you get a chance to go down?
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Every major
shopping,
luxury brand.
You got Crystal there.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And my mouth would water just walking down that street, staring into windows. And so it's just one of my favorite meals ever was at Alfredo's, which is the restaurant what's the dish? Fettuccine Alfredo was first created.
Invented.
Ooh.
You can invent food, yes. Created. But it's an amazing restaurant. Then there's Caffè Greco, which is also on Via Condotti, which is I think it's either the oldest coffee shop in Rome, which means probably the oldest coffee shop in the world. And that's also an amazing experience. So that's all in that but it's also, that's the premium area to hang out. It's also the most expensive. So the people who are listening to this, that's the place you're going to end up spending most of the money, because everything costs a little bit more right in the center of town.
We're going to talk about planes, trains, and automobiles in the second half. We'll also venture out to Capri. We're going to ask about a couple other locations in the book. But at our halfway point, we have a pit stop. What happens on the pit stop, Crystal?
The pit stop is when you're wondering, all right, so, sorry, give me 1 second. So halfway through the show, this is where we always dream about what would it be like when we finally got there? Are we there yet? So this is our hint of the gear of the day. And then you can see past gear of the day at stackingadventures.com/gear of the day. Joe, do you have our hint or do I have a hint?
I do. I have.
Oh, you do.
I have a hint that this goes great in your bag.
Okay.
For the trip. And when you're on the plane, when you're sitting on a beach, when you're maybe at the Michelangelo Hotel and you're just relaxing just outside the Vatican, you can flip through the pages, not even flip through the pages, you can get engrossed in a story about these two heroes that are fighting with the mafia and trying to collect some art. Any idea what that might be, Crystal? Wait a minute. Don't say it now. We will we'll have Crystal's guess in just a moment.
All right. Okay, you said it fits in the bag. It goes in your bag. You could flip through pages.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I have a guess.
Well, imagine you're in a place like Rome or by the Vatican or even someplace else. You're on a beach somewhere in the Caribbean and you want to read about this adventure that people have that's all over Italy and different places. No.
It's a bicycle.
It's not a bicycle. Yes.
Well,
and it fits in your bag.
It's perfect.
It's one of those fold-up bikes.
Oh, yeah, Brumpson. Yeah, I wrote one of those. I know. It's me. I go in your bag sometimes and I can tell stories. Take me on your trip. I'm the gear. It's me. I knew it. Finally.
Crystal's going to volunteer to be and she'll bring a bicycle.
Me. Yes.
Yes. We will for people that are a little obtuse and have no idea what we're talking about, we'll spell it out at the end of today's show. But all right, Michael, back to you. You mentioned a few things. Number one, taking the bullet train in in the Vatican Deal. Have you actually taken the Italian bullet train?
Yes, I don't think it was called the bullet train at the time. It was called, what was that? It was
Monorail?
Stars? No. Oh, gosh. I wish I had written some of this stuff down. I apologize. It's my fault.
No, it's fine.
Star, I think it's Eurostar. I think it was
Eurostar, yep.
Yeah, Eurostar was the name of the train. And so it was actually very easy. That was one of the things that I was very impressed with, because I obviously don't read Italian. I barely speak Italian. I speak Italian like an American speaks Italian.
Oh.
I do this. I say it in English, but I do
this. This is the Italian.
The American Italian. I'm taking the train.
That's funny.
Yeah. So anyways, but what was amazing was that I had no problems at all. It was very easy. The signs or kind of billings, if you will, that tells you when to board and where to board and what. It's very easy. And the train is it's beautiful. It's very quiet. You look out the window. In the book, I had the characters in first class. I didn't ride in first class because the nice thing about writing a book is you can fictionalize the amount of money that people have. And so we always went standard, although it was very nice. It wasn't, we're not talking about like lower. We didn't sit on the floor or anything. It was really nice. And beautiful scenery, beautiful villages as you're flying past them, etc. It's very quiet. Bullet trains or whatever, all you hear is, I even said that in the book, the only thing you hear is the sliding on skates on ice. You just hear them.
It was incredible how quiet it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the trains. Yeah. That you bring up a good point about how Americans speak Italian. Another part of the book, you mentioned how when they gave you your cell phones, they told you about all the Italian phrases and the customs and the courtesies. That's important to know. What were some of those things that Americans, we think we do it here, but don't do that over there? Or because I know a friend of mine said, always say bonjour, madame, and always say hi.
I don't remember all of it. Most of it was how to say hello and how to answer a telephone, which is like pronto or something like that. And the biggest challenge we had with the phones was because this was a while ago, and this was back in 2004 in that area, in that era. And the phones at that time weren't sophisticated as they are today. And so you'd have a real hard time sometimes using an American phone over there. Now, that's outdated. People who are listening today should not worry about that, because that's not true anymore. You just get an international plan for the time you're there, and you're perfectly fine. I have plenty of friends who've gone to Italy and gone to Europe recently, and they've not had any phone problems at all. I did in those years, because we're talking about a long time ago. So,
to get to places like Sardinia, Sicily, you went to Capri, you take a ferry. You said earlier, Michael, that you took the ferry.
Yes.
Ferry also easy like the bullet train. The only thing I found about the bullet train that we didn't mention, don't be late. This is not Amtrak where they run late a lot. They never run late, and that door doesn't open for that long. So you need to be where you need to be, get the heck on the train, and then it's gone.
Yes, very true. It's the same thing with the ferry. I don't remember anyone having a problem because I wasn't late, so therefore I can't really speak to that. But yeah, you take the ferry, and Capri is amazing. It's pure vacation. You're not going to, if you do work on Capri, there's something wrong with you. When you get off at the dock, when you look up, there's an entire row of kind of these beautiful old hotels, and I stayed at I think it was called the Hotel Capri, and it overlooked the ferry dock area and the marina, et cetera, and it was gorgeous. But the thing about Capri is you take either it's not a ski lift, but it looks like a ski lift, but it's a, what would you call that? Like a trolley or whatever? And
one of the
streetcar. No.
Yeah, but it's
a funicular.
It's a vertical thing, right?
Yeah, the funicular, right?
Yeah, which is really weird. I'm a writer, and I'm about as inarticulate about this. So clearly, I have a problem today with finding the right words. Anyways, and you go over this pass, and then you end up in this kind of central piazza, which is, if I remember correctly, it was called the Piazza Umberto, I believe it was. And it's just this central carved out of the hill or the mountain. And then it's just filled with coffee shops. You sit outside of the coffee shops and you just enjoy the sun. And then there are these streets that kind of just octopus out from the center. It's like the hub of the wheel, and then you have these streets that go out, and along all those streets are just some of the most beautiful shops, and again, restaurants and markets and what have you. It's really gorgeous. There's not that much to do. We rented a little motor scooter. Vespa. And we took that around the island.
Oh, cool.
You have to be very careful because the streets are very narrow, and you will come around a corner and there's a guy coming right at you, and it might be a tourist bus or whatever, and they're in the middle of the lane, and you are heading, and I thought I was dead at least 5 or 6 times while I was doing this motorcycle thing. And because you just go, oh shit, here's another curve. Oh, damn it. You just do this the whole time. Okay. Are we safe?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but it's very
Vespa. Yeah. I want to do that. Exactly. Yeah. I want to do that. Yeah. I want to ride the thing.
The other thing is you can do is you rent a boat. And they'll just rent a boat and you take it out. There's something called the Blue Grotto, which is Azzurra, actually, the Grotto Azzurra. And it's gorgeous. It's this cave, and sunlight somehow manages to get into the cave. Wow. And as a result, the water inside the cave turns bright blue. And it's amazing. Yeah, it's really cool.
I would never have thought to rent a boat, and now that's on the list.
Yes, it's very easy. You do it right by where you dock at the ferry. They have little stands, and they're regular powered boats. We're not talking about like little fishing boat. We're talking about a real boat with like what you have when you go out on the lake and take the kids water skiing.
I don't.
Wait, did it come with the driver, or did you just rent the boat?
No, you just rent it.
Just rent the boat.
Yeah.
We had, the reason I ask is because we had a boat with a captain when we were in Crete, And I didn't even really want to do this. It was just we rented it for a couple hours. This guy took us around this nature preserve island that was off of the coast, and he found a little secluded area. We went swimming there, and he filled geez, Michael, it's contagious. I can't think of words either. He filled an ice box.
Thank God you're not a writer.
A cooler.
With a cooler. Yeah. He filled a cooler with wine
Charades.
and drinks and all kinds of stuff. And it was maybe one of the top 2 or 3. I was gone for 18 days, and it was maybe one of the top 2 or 3 things I did was went out on this boat for a couple hours. Just getting something. Maybe it's the fact that I was doing something that we were doing that you didn't have tons of tourists around doing the same thing.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Capri is very close, right on the Amalfi Coast. Did you do any of the Amalfi coastal cities as well?
No, we just we just didn't have the time. We just made the decision to spend a couple of days on Capri. And so it was straight to Naples, straight to Capri, and then we just hung out. And
you have some other locations in the Vatican Deal that people will have to read it to see. But one I'll give away. It's not hard. We're talking about art, right? And you already mentioned Michelangelo. So Florence is in the book, but I want to ask a question. Where art meets Florence is the Uffizi Museum. And a conundrum that Cheryl, my spouse, and I always had. We had this in Paris. We've been talking about this actually in our Facebook group, the Clubhouse, that when you go to Paris and you go to the Louvre, it's easy to forget that there's this big, beautiful city and instead spend hours and hours and hours looking at, don't get me wrong, some great art, but some of it's also fairly irrelevant art. You can just get stuck because the Louvre is so big. When we went to the Uffizi, Michael, is because you've been there. It's the same. It's huge. How do you see what you want to see at a place like the Louvre or the Uffizi and not get overwhelmed?
I was always overwhelmed, and my wear comfortable shoes. And the Uffizi is actually, you say it's Uffizi. I always say Uffizi. I think I think it's actually, I think the Italians say Uffizi and the Americans say Uffizi.
I'm fairly certain I pronounce it wrong, like everything else.
No.
Right.
Oh, that's how you say it. Yeah. You
no
don't say it
hands.
right. Exactly.
So, anyways, it's actually, you'll be surprised at this. It's actually smaller than the Vatican Museum.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yeah. The Vatican Museum, you'll walk, 12 miles by the time you're done.
It just felt huge when I was there.
If you see the whole thing, right?
Sure.
Wow.
If they take you through the whole thing. The Uffizi is also huge. No argument about that. I was never smart enough, or maybe I just enjoy the art enough that I never thought of anything as somehow lesser than others. So every floor, every room I walked into, I just was overwhelmed by the beauty of it. And I'm a real fan of that kind of art, the Renaissance kind of art, the traditional art, if that's the right term. I've never been as big a fan of modern art. I don't think I could, for example, do the same thing in New York, to go through the Museum of Modern Art, for example, and be as constantly overwhelmed or as just in love with what I'm looking at, because I'm not as big a fan. But give me Renaissance art, and maybe that's the European in me. I was born in Europe, and so I grew up on that kind of art, and I'm also old. And so give me naked people clutching each other, and I'm happy. So show me the Sistine Chapel ceiling with a bunch of just really buff guys and beautiful women, and I'm just a happy guy.
Oh, so the Uffizi for you, it's different. Like, you're not measuring time. It's like a warm blanket. You'll stay in there for all day.
Oh, yeah, remember, I went there for a slightly different reason than you might have gone. You went because you wanted to see the art, you wanted to appreciate history, etc. I went because I was there on business. I kept trying to look for things that I could replicate, that I can then send to my customers who would try to auction it off for them. So every room I went into, it was like, take a picture of that. We need that one. We need this one. No, that one's not good. It's too big. We can't really do that one. That kind of stuff. So I also went for a slightly different reason.
One more. We'll have to have you back to talk more about Florence. But one last thing about art in Florence is, I remember we went to see David, And there is a replica of David. It is exact. It's an exact replica, and it's outside one of the major buildings. So you could just not go see the real one, just see the fake one. But it was incredible, Michael, the difference between the two. And I know people way smarter than me have tried to put their finger on this. And I don't know if you felt the same way, but when we turned the corner and you saw the real David, there was something lighter. There was something more, there was a quality to it. And this isn't me just knowing ahead of time in my brain, that's the real one, that's a fake. Right. There is clearly just something different about the real David versus seeing the one that's out in front of one of the government buildings.
Yeah, so the David that you're talking about is in the Piazza della Signoria, I believe it's called, which is the piazza just outside of the Uffizi. And there's also I think it's called the Loggia, which is the platform on which there are multiple sculptures. And it's a huge tourist area. And that's where, in that piazza, is the duplicate David. And when the real David is inside and it's been protected from the elements as a result. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, it's going to be a little bit just nicer, less weathered looking. But as I understand it, the one that's outside, I think it may actually be a Curazzi replica. I'm not 100% sure of that. I'm not 100% sure of that. But I believe that you are looking at an exact replica, but it's been, for lack of a better term, it sits outside, right? So it's been through the rain and the weather and the heat and the blah, blah, blah. So
it is just incredible. Wow. It's clearly not to be missed. Speaking of not to be missed, we can't miss our gear of the day before we say goodbye. I gave you this hint, Crystal, about our gear of the day. It goes great in your bag. It's a fantastic read if you're either on the beach or heck, you're headed to Italy or you're going. This is clearly a piece about travel and about art and about the mafia.
Oh my God, it's a gun? I thought bicycle. Now I'm thinking gun. And now I'm thinking,
change, update.
You're going to have a hard time at the airport. You're not going to get it through the airport.
I know. That is a pay. Crystal, any idea what this might be?
I'm still going to go with me. It's me. No, I think I know what it is. Is it a book? And is it called The Vatican Deal by Michael Balter?
Oh, shock of shocks. You got it right. We have it on the screen. It's another Marty and Bo thriller, The Vatican Deal. It is a great sequel for these two guys that I liked following. In your first book, Michael, Chasing Money, how is this different than Chasing Money, by the way? Because Chasing Money got all kinds of accolades. And, of course, there's some travel there, too. But how is this different?
Yeah, actually, I'll show you. I have props. And so this is my very first book. It was called Chasing Money. Stickers. So it looks like it's my personal copy. Notice it looks like a NASCAR. And that's because
stickers all over it.
What my wife said, I said, can we do this on Reel? And she goes, no, it looks like a NASCAR, for God's sake. So these are all of
stickers.
These are all of the awards that it won, including, by the way, which is even on here, it won Crime Thriller of the Year for 2024. Which is pretty cool. And it was my first book. It became a bestseller. And so it was very successful. And it's about these two entrepreneurs who take money from the wrong people, Russian mobsters. And the twist at the end is that they end up partnering with, I shouldn't give this away, should I?
Don't give it away. Stop talking.
Don't give it away. Okay.
The butler did it. The twist is the butler did it.
The butler.
So there's a twist at the end. The twist leads into the second book. And that in the second book, one of the challenges that I had from the publisher when he said, I need a sequel, this book really did, was, okay, how do I take two entrepreneurs who are just average guys and they ended up getting into serious trouble with the mob? How do I put them in danger again? And because that doesn't happen to people 2 or 3 times in a row. And then I had all of my Italian experiences and I said, what if I put them in Italy, give them the experience that I actually went through, which is buying a foundry,
so cool.
Cutting a deal with the Vatican. But what I'll do is the fictionalized part of it is I'll throw in actually a real live Italian war. And it turns out that when I was there back in the day, the single largest modern day, or the single largest mafia war in modern day Italian history occurred at the same time that I was dealing with the Vatican. It was just happening in Naples at the time. And over 220 men were killed in this war.
Wow.
Damn.
And it's it's absolutely
That's
true.
wild.
And you can read all about it. And I said, I will take that truth and I'll fictionalize that part and shove it into my adventure for these two characters. And that's how the book came about.
It's such a ride. I, just prepping for this, read the first 40 pages, and I read very slowly. And I think I read it in about 12 minutes.
Oh,
just because I'm on the ride. I'm on the roller coaster. Now we got to end this interview so I can finish the damn book, Michael. I got to know what happens.
Yeah, I've had this argument with my wife, who reads everything that I write. And I'll give her the manuscript, and then she'll read it, and she'll be done like in 3 or 4 hours. And I said, okay, honey, you need to read it much slower. I took a year every day to write this. And so I say to you, Joe, it took me probably 3 months to write what you read in 12 minutes. Shame on you. You need to spend more time. I want you to literally hover over every word the way I did. Okay?
And just go, isn't that delicious?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Look at that sentence construction.
Exactly. That's what you need to do.
The grammar is impeccable.
It is so fun. It's called The Vatican Deal. You can get it wherever books are sold, I think.
Yes.
And we'll link to it on our Amazon page, stackingadventures.com/gear of the day.
And of course, it's our gear of the day. Only the second book, Crystal, that's in our gear of the day section.
Yeah, that's true.
We also did, Michael, the only other one, you'll be very proud of us. The only other one is a book of Halloween-based recipes from this wonderful mother-daughter team in New Orleans. And so
drink recipes.
New Orleans drink recipes, and now the Vatican Deal.
Oh, well, there you go.
You make your drinks, you grab the reed.
There's parity there, I'm sure. We can find it.
What else do you need? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing.
Exactly. Talking about drinks. Seriously, have me back. I will tell you the story about how I pubbed my way through England.
We are doing that, brother.
Yes, we are. That's our teaser for when we have Michael back.
I still have the book.
Oh my gosh.
It was a long time ago, but the pubs are still all there. Trust me.
The three of us, we need to come up with an experience to write our own book. And
I know we heard a little piece of that backstage as well, and this won't be the last time you're going to hear from Michael if he makes time for us before he becomes the next Dan Brown and doesn't want anything to do with us. So.
Stephen King.
You knew me when.
Of course, we also have an in with Michael. Unfortunately, he's friends with Mom's neighbor Doug. So
yay!
Yes.
Keep it.
Is the word fortunate or unfortunate there? I'm not sure.
Oh no, I think I said unfortunate.
Neighbor Doug's my favorite.
Doug's a wonderful guy. Wonderful.
We all feel bad for you, Michael. All right, adventures. That's enough from us. Here is the question, and I've got a great question, Crystal, that we didn't talk about, but I think you'll agree. What are some of the travel-related books that you love? Books that might not be about travel, but like the Vatican Deal, are books that have all these cool locations and, kind of this James Bond thing where we're going across the globe. Wouldn't that be fun to hear?
Yes. So we want to hear from you. You're going to head to stackingadventures.com/mystory and tell us about any kind of books or places that you've adventured thanks to books, or even movies too, I would say.
Yeah. And Crystal and I are going to have ours in just a few weeks. Yeah. So please add to that episode, stackingadventures.com/mystory. Michael, man, thanks for spending an hour with us and talking about locations in the book and some of the melding the real world with Sanka.
Shadows.
When you said Sanka, you should have said no, thank you.
Brought me
but
back.
That might be
no, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. And on that, she's Crystal.
And I'm Joe. He's Joe.
Yes. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Stacking Adventures.